Good evening and welcome to Netzach Yisrael's daily Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. I am sorry that this is a little bit late. It was unavoidable. So we continue Siman Nun, Siman 50, which is talking about the bracha or the blessing that is made before food or before other matters that one has benefit from. So we start from Seif Zayin. Someone who tastes a cooked food, to see whether it needs some salt or some more seasoning. However, for this time, the person takes a sip or tastes a bit of the food and then spits it out. Then one does not need to make a blessing before tasting this food. However, if one were to swallow the food that one is taking to taste whatever's in the main pot, then there is a doubt if one needs to make a blessing, because one is swallowing. Therefore, there is a question whether that is enough to make one require a blessing beforehand. Or maybe one does not need to make a blessing beforehand, because one does not really want to eat this. One is really tasting it to see whether it needs more salt, more seasoning, or if it's okay rather than as an actual food. And therefore, one should be careful that when one tastes the food, one should have in mind that they want to eat the bit that they're using to taste as well, and therefore we will and then one can make a blessing on it and swallow it, and there is no problem. Seif Ches. One who eats or drinks something as a medication. If it is something that is tasty and one has benefit from it, then one makes a blessing before and after it, with whichever blessing is fitting for it, even though one is not actually kind of eating it as a food, as a meal, but is only doing it for medication. However, because one gets benefits from it and it is tasty, therefore you still have to make the blessings. But and this even applies if one is eating something that would normally not be allowed to be eaten for health reasons. Because normally, if one would eat something like that, it is forbidden. One does not make a blessing. However, because one is now allowed to eat this thing because it is for health, therefore one goes and doesn't make it a blessing. As just said, because the Torah permitted it now. So therefore one needs to make a blessing on it. And if it is something bitter, that one does not get any benefit from it, or kind of no immediate satisfactory benefit, food satisfaction benefit. As one is taking this as medication, one is hoping that there is some sort of benefit. One does not make a blessing on this food. Someone who swallows a raw egg in order to make one's voice better, smoother. Even though one does not benefit from its taste, because never having done it, I don't know, but I can't imagine it tastes particularly brilliant. And then one still gets benefit from the fact that it contains nutrients and you've had something that is filling. To maize and Zion, because it does act as food, and therefore one does need to make a blessing on it when one does this. Seif Tes. Someone placed something in their mouth, and then one takes a sip of water or a little bit of bread in order to be able to swallow whatever is in their mouth. Or something, or whatever else it is that one has benefits from. So it could be anything, it could be any sort of food or drink that one gets benefits from, that you're using to try and get something else down, like a tablet, for example. So then one does need to make a blessing on this food or water or drink or liquid, both before and after. However, if someone is not thirsty and they're using water to take this, which is very relevant nowadays, people take pills and often will take them with a sip of water to get the pill down. The only reason using the water is to try and get the pill or whatever it is that's in your mouth, for example, a pill, down. Or for another reason, then one does not make a blessing on the water. Excuse me. One only gets benefits from water when one is drinking it, when one is thirsty. However, for final rulings, I would advise you to discuss this further with a competent Orthodox rabbi. If one forgot, one put some food into one's mouth without a blessing. If it is something, even if one spits it out, it won't be disgusting. As I say, you haven't started chewing it, or it's something that is whole, and it says you haven't started chewing it. Then one should spit it out into one's mouth and then make the blessing. One should not make the blessing on this whilst it is still in one's mouth. Because there's the verse, that my mouth should be full with your praise, i.e. when you're praising God or you're making a blessing, one should have nothing else in one's mouth. And if it is something, if you spit it out, it will be disgusting. Since it is forbidden to waste food, then one moves it to one side of one's mouth, and then one does make the blessing, because the law of not wasting food will override the idea that we gain from the verse. And if this happens with liquids, when it is impossible to move all of the liquids just into one cheek. As I then, if one has any more liquids, then one can spit liquids out, and then one makes the blessing. And if one does not have any more liquids, and one is particular about the liquid that's in one's mouth, for whatever reason, and then one swallows them, and then one makes a blessing, the blessing that one would normally make beforehand, after this. Because since one remembers whilst it was still in one's mouth, so it is still slightly comparable to making the blessing before one does the actual act. Obviously, we're not talking in an ideal situation here, obviously. However, one does not make, in this case, the after blessing. But if it is wine and one drank a revius measure of wine, and this is the last swallow of this wine, then one makes the after blessing as well, as the exception to the rule, because I'm assuming because wine is considered to be a more important drink. But that's my own thoughts. I'm not 100%. It might or might not be true. If there are in front of you two species that have the same blessing, like for example a nut and an apple, which both of them you make a bori pari ha'etz. As one is able to make a blessing on one and then to exempt the second one from the blessing, then one is obligated to do so. And one is forbidden to make a blessing on the first fruit with intention not to include the second fruit in this, in order to be able to make a second blessing on the second fruit by itself. And this is forbidden, because it is forbidden to cause oneself to need to make an unnecessary blessing. And one should make a blessing on the one that is more important. And through this exempt the one of lesser importance. Even though even though one did not have any intention to exempt these second fruits, it doesn't matter because it is of lesser importance. But in Berach al Zeh she'enei chashuv, if one made a blessing on the one that is not important, this will not exempt the more important one, or the more beloved one, however you kind of define importance, which depends on which normally, in most cases, although we shall see later, this is often considered to be the one that one enjoys more. So therefore, then the blessing on the one of lesser importance will not exempt the one that is more important, and unless one had intention to exempt oneself with it. But if one made the blessing without any intention, then one needs to make a second blessing over the more important one. It is not in the law that the one that the one that is of less importance will exempt the one of more importance, because we'd assume that you wouldn't want to do them separately. Thank you very much for listening. Have a good evening.